What if I told you that nothing matters? And that's exactly why everything can begin. We've been taught to fear nihilism. As if the moment you realize that life has no inherent meaning, you'll spiral into despair. As if seeing the void is the end of the road. But what if the void is not an end, but a beginning? Most people run from nihilism because they believe meaning is something they're supposed to find, like a treasure buried somewhere in the world. So when they look around and don't find it, panic sets in. Depression creeps in. If nothing matters, they ask, then why go on? But here's the twist. Nihilism doesn't have to be a dead end. It can be a key, a tool, a quiet revolution inside your mind that sets you free, not to fall, but to rise. Let's go deeper. Nihilism, in its raw form, is the rejection of objective meaning. It says, life doesn't come preloaded with significance. There's no cosmic instruction manual, no divine scoreboard tracking your every move, and that realization, it can either crush you or liberate you. Because once you understand that meaning is not handed to you, you realize it can be made. It's terrifying. And it's empowering. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this coming. He knew that the death of old belief systems would leave a void in the soul of the West. He called it the great challenge of the modern age, to stare into the abyss and not be consumed by it, but to create meaning in spite of it. That's where the real power lies. Not in the illusion of fixed purpose, but in your capacity to become a creator of meaning. When you strip away illusions, cultural expectations, borrowed dreams, inherited goals, you're left with pure potential. A blank page. And that's when life begins to get interesting. But here's the catch. Freedom without responsibility is chaos. So if you reject all meaning but fail to create your own, nihilism will devour you. You'll drift. You'll numb yourself with distractions. You'll mistake apathy for peace. And you'll lose yourself in a sea of indifference. So the question becomes, how do you turn nihilism from poison into medicine? Start by reframing the void. Instead of seeing the absence of objective meaning as a curse, see it as space to build, to imagine, to choose. You are no longer bound by the script. You can write your own. This is what I call creative nihilism. It's not about believing in nothing. It's about being radically honest about the lack of given meaning, and then having the courage to create your code, your structure, your reasons. Think about it. If nothing inherently matters, then you decide what matters. That's power. But with that power comes a challenge. No more excuses. You can no longer blame the universe for your lack of direction. You can't blame fate or God or society. You're the one holding the brush. You're the one painting the canvas, and that terrifies people. It terrified me too. There was a time in my life when nihilism had me by the throat. I felt lost. Every goal I had achieved felt hollow. Every pursuit I chased faded as soon as I caught it. The world felt like a treadmill, and I was running toward a wall that kept moving back. But then, something broke. I stopped chasing meaning out there. And I started asking, what would it look like to live as if my values were true? Even if the universe didn't care, could I care anyway? That was the shift. I stopped needing meaning to be eternal. I stopped needing the stars to validate my path. I started living on purpose instead of waiting for purpose to appear. That's when I realized nihilism doesn't destroy meaning. It destroys fake meaning, second-hand stories that were never truly yours. And once you burn those down, what's left is the space to create. That's why I say, nihilism is not the end, it's the forge. It's the fire that melts down inherited beliefs so you can reshape them or discard them entirely. It's the night of the soul that clears the noise so you can finally hear your voice. But don't mistake this for a smooth path. It isn't. When you step into this kind of freedom, you'll feel lost before you feel found. You'll question everything, even yourself. And that's part of the process. You're not just trying to survive the absence of meaning. You're trying to become the kind of person who doesn't need meaning to be handed to them. You're becoming the creator. And creators suffer. They doubt. They wrestle with shadows. But they don't surrender to despair. Because they know that meaning isn't something you wait for. It's something you build choice by choice, value by value, day by day. You see, the problem isn't that nothing matters. The problem is that we've been trained to think that meaning has to be given to us to be real. But here's the truth. Meaning you build for yourself is not weaker, it's stronger. It's forged in fire. It's earned. And because of that, it lasts. Imagine someone who lives their life according to a set of values they never questioned because those values were inherited. And now imagine someone who dug deep, doubted everything, faced the void, and then chose their values anyway. Who do you think is living more authentically? The answer is obvious. That's why embracing nihilism isn't about giving up. It's about taking responsibility. Not just for what you believe, but for who you are becoming. There's no map here. That's the point. But there are tools. One of the first tools is awareness. When you feel lost or numb, ask, am I grieving the loss of borrowed meaning? Because sometimes what we call despair is really just withdrawal from old belief systems that no longer serve us, and withdrawal isn't death. It's the start of rebirth. Another tool is value creation. Sit with yourself. What matters to you, not to your family, your culture, or your social media feed, but to you? In silence, answering that question is how you begin to turn nihilism into freedom, not freedom from responsibility, but freedom with responsibility. The freedom to say, no one told me what matters. So I chose and I stand by it. That's power. That's integrity. That's maturity. And that's the antidote to despair. The world tells you who to be from the moment you're born. Be successful, be admired, be useful, be normal. But when nihilism shatters those narratives, you're left naked. And that nakedness is not weakness, it's clarity. For the first time, you can ask, what do I want to stand for? This is where the work begins. Step 1 is to define your values, not in theory, but in practice. Don't ask what you believe. Ask what you're willing to act on. Ask what you're willing to suffer for. Because values are not just ideas, they're chosen sacrifices. If you value truth, are you willing to lose comfort for it? If you value freedom, are you willing to face uncertainty? If you value love, are you willing to be vulnerable? These aren't hypotheticals. They're the tests that define your character. And when you begin to live by chosen values, not inherited scripts, you start to build your framework of meaning. And something incredible happens. You stop needing to justify your existence. You stop needing the universe to make sense. You stop trying to decode some cosmic purpose written in invisible ink. Instead, you become the author. And you write with blood, effort, and intention. This is how you use nihilism as fuel, not to escape life, but to enter it fully awake. But make no mistake, this path is not safe. It's not warm and comforting. It doesn't offer answers on a silver platter. It doesn't whisper, everything will be okay. Instead, it says, you are free. And that freedom is terrifying, but it's yours. And that is the most powerful position a human being can stand in. When you walk this path, you begin to realize that despair is not the opposite of meaning. It's the birthplace of it. Because despair only arises when the old meanings no longer work, and that means you're ready to grow beyond them. You're in transition between the story you were given and the story you're about to create. This is sacred ground, but to navigate it, you need courage. You need to let go of being right and instead focus on being real. You need to replace shallow optimism with deep resilience. And you need to trade certainty for sincerity. This isn't easy. Most people will try to distract themselves instead. They'll drown in entertainment, consumption, and validation. They'll do anything to avoid facing the silence that nihilism brings. Because in that silence, there's no one left to impress, just you and the echo of your truth. But those who dare to sit in that silence, they emerge changed. They stop living reactively. They start living intentionally. And intentional living is rare because it means taking full ownership of your choices, of your beliefs, of your life. It means saying, "No one gave me a script, so I wrote my own, and I stand by it." This is what Nietzsche meant by becoming the Übermensch, not a Superman in the comic book sense, but a human who creates their values and lives by them with ferocity and grace. That's what you're becoming. And here's the paradox. When you stop searching for the meaning of life, you open the door to something far more powerful, a meaningful way of living, not as a spectator, but as a participant, not waiting for meaning to be revealed, but revealing it through action, choice, and presence. You begin to live in alignment with something real, not because it was handed to you, but because you built it with your own two hands. And when you do that, the void doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels sacred. It becomes the place where you rise. You might still feel doubt. That's normal. You might still feel lost at times. That's human. But you will never again be helpless because you've seen that even in a meaningless world, you can still choose to matter. And that choice is everything. So here's my question for you. If nothing is given, what will you choose to give? What values will you create? What truth will you live by? What meaning will you stand for? Even when no one is watching, let me know in the comments below. Your story matters, not because it was assigned to you, but because you are brave enough to live it. And if this message resonated, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Not for the algorithm, but to stay connected to ideas that challenge you, empower you, and maybe even change you. Because in a world where nothing is guaranteed, the most powerful thing you can do is choose to show up fully anyway. Your freedom is not in meaning. It's in your ability to create it. Now go live like it.